The Malaysian Grand Prix is one often cited by fans as a race that they'd love to see make a return to the calendar. But what made it such a beloved circuit? And why did it drop off the schedule in the first place? Let's find out. Sepang International Circuit began its life in the late 90s. The then Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, initiated major infrastructure projects nationwide. One of those projects was the Sepang International Circuit, intending to bring Formula One to Malaysia. Hermann Tilke, at the time still relatively unknown to the motorsport world, with only the redesign of what would become the Red Bull Ring in Austria under his belt, was tasked with designing the circuit. Construction began in 1997 and was completed 2 years later in 1999. With a large capacity of 130,000, the 15 corners and 5.5-kilometre layout of Sepang is fast and flowing, with many of the corners being sweeping chicanes and slow hairpins at the end of long straights. Sepang International Circuit officially opened on the 7th of March 1999. However, the first Grand Prix wasn't held there for some time, in mid-October of that year. The inaugural race, only the fourth Grand Prix in a new country in 25 years, took place on a hot and cloudy Sunday afternoon. Michael Schumacher, returning from a 6-race absence due to a broken leg suffered at the British Grand Prix earlier in the year, took a stunning pole position ahead of Ferrari teammate Eddie Irvine. Schumacher had lost nothing during his time in recovery, being the only man to get a lap in under 1 minute and 40 seconds in qualifying. Early on in the race, Schumacher relinquished his position to his teammate, who, thanks to injury, was fighting for the title with Mika Häkkinen. It was a relatively uneventful race. Many drivers fell foul to the challenging corners that made up the circuit, with 9 failing to make the checkered flag. However, there were no major incidents to speak of. The Ferrari pair took a 1-2, with the Irishman standing on the top step of the podium, putting him into first place in the championship. In a shocking turn of events, once the race had ended, both Ferrari cars were deemed to be illegal due to undersized deflector plates, and as such, Schumacher and Irvine were disqualified from the race. This handed the win to Häkkinen and, with only 1 race remaining in the season, also the Drivers' Championship. Mika Häkkinen commented post-race, saying that it was one of the hardest races of his career.
A couple of minutes ago, it was so, you can imagine, it was the hardest race I've ever done in my life, and it was the race where you have to just go flat out.
The insane heat at Malaysia makes driving flat out extremely difficult. If you're enjoying the video, please consider giving it a like and hitting the subscribe button to see more F1 content like this. The local weather would be a topic that frequently arose during the 18 years that the Malaysia Grand Prix ran at Sepang. Thanks to Malaysia's proximity to the equator, the temperature was often very high and unpredictable rainfall and monsoons frequently hit the area. The high chance of rain made for some challenging races over the years. In 2009, the second round of the championship took place in Malaysia in early April. The race started under dry conditions, but as it progressed, the sky darkened and by lap 20, it was looking very ominous. The rain started and proved incredibly tricky, with the circuit being far drier in some places than others, catching many drivers out. It progressively became worse. It became torrential. Thanks to some flawless driving and brilliant strategic decisions, Button led the race by the time the safety car came out due to the conditions. Visibility was down to almost nothing, and cars were aquaplaning and spinning even under the low speeds of a safety car. The light was rapidly diminishing, least of all because of the weather. On lap 33, the race was red flagged due to the monsoon-like conditions. Jenson Button was declared the winner and awarded half points due to the completed race distance. By this point, Malaysia had cemented itself as one of the great tracks on the calendar. Races were regularly exciting thanks to a track that promoted close racing and overtaking thanks to the layout and it being especially wide in some places. Aside from 2009's Monsoon, the Malaysia Grand Prix has been host to several other notorious moments in Formula One history. 2013's controversial Multi-2-1 incident between Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber took place in Sepang, where, despite team orders to hold position, Vettel caught and subsequently passed Webber, who was leading the race at the time. This ended up being the breaking point of Webber and Vettel's relationship.
In the end, Seb made his own decisions today and we'll have protection as usual, and that's the way it goes.
Webber deciding to leave the team and Formula One altogether later in the year. The circuit was resurfaced in 2016 with some of the corners being reprofiled, most notably the final corner, a hairpin that saw many overtakes over the years, now having far more negative camber than previously, making it a much trickier corner than before. Drivers weren't particularly impressed with the changes made to the circuit, with Daniel Ricciardo commenting that the only positive was that it was more challenging now. Unfortunately, by 2016, Sepang had started to struggle. While the circuit remained fantastic and the racing generally good, the number of fans attending the race had been dwindling for several years. This, combined with rising hosting fees each year, meant that the circuit was having difficulty justifying staying on the F1 calendar. Proximity to the Singapore Grand Prix was often cited as a factor for low ticket sales. The two venues are very close to one another, and Singapore was often seen as the more prestigious of the two events. Sepang's final contract was due to expire after the 2018 race. However, 2017 would be the final race held by F1 at the circuit. Malaysia's Youth and Sports Minister took to Twitter to comment on the cost associated with the Grand Prix and how it wasn't the novelty it once was. Despite dropping off of the F1 calendar, Sepang is still an active motorsport venue, regularly hosting races in other series such as the Asian Le Mans Series and hosting the Sepang 12 Hours. Petronas, sponsors of the race throughout its entire tenure, has recently stated it hopes to have the race back on the F1 calendar by 2026, so far having agreed naming rights for the event. This seems to contradict Malaysia's sports minister, however, with her commenting recently that due to the costs involved, F1 returning to Sepang would be quite impossible. What are your thoughts on the Sepang International Circuit? Do any races from its history stand out for you? And would you like to see it make a comeback and rejoin the F1 calendar? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to see more videos like this.